Hi, everyone. Okay, I'd like to introduce everyone to a former Lin-Wood student and successful graduate, Cameron King. And his name sounds both familiar to you as he is the son of Mr. King, Bart King, and Mrs. King, Paula King. Also, brother Nate King also went to school here, if anyone remembers Nate. Maybe you don't. So Cam was born here and raised in North Woodstock. He graduated from Lin-Wood in 2007. He was a sophomore my first year here. I was very, very young then. Very young. He played
like 18, right?
18.
Yeah.
Okay. He played soccer, was on the ski team in high school. After graduation, he went to Emerson College in Boston and graduated in 2011. During his senior year at Emerson, he spent a summer in LA as part of an internship program where he took classes at night and worked at the Jimmy Kimmel live show during the day. He spent the summer after graduation working 3 jobs here in Lincoln and Woodstock to pay for his move to Los Angeles, to which at that time he became a production assistant for a handful of reality shows. In January of 2013, he got his big break and he was hired full-time for the Jimmy Kimmel Live show as a production assistant. Now he's moved up the ranks for doing his good work, and he has become the production coordinator working for the Jimmy Kimmel Live show. Isn't that awesome?
Yeah.
That's sweet. That's awesome. Okay, so though we're in these challenging, COVID times, so becoming the production coordinator or being the production coordinator and managing and adapting to these COVID protocols, I'm sure has been both challenging and a lot of fun for Cam in his cool Hollywood studio. So, as I was thinking about Cam as a former Lin-Wood student, I went rifling through my filing cabinet looking for some old things I might find, and I came across Cam's senior project that he had to do, which is not something that we do anymore, but it was like this 20-page project. I could show it to you. And Cam was like, I wish that thing never existed, and I forgot all about it, which I will say, I think this research, he ultimately did his project on symbolism and archetypes in movies, which I believe his research is probably what spawned this great Hollywood career of his that he did in my senior English class. But what is hilarious is I will tell you.
Nice claim.
You don't think that's true? I think it's true. I will tell you a hilarious part of this story is that the title of this research project was Movies We Love, but Don't Fully Understand. Incredibly creative title that I cannot believe I allowed you to have. But anyway, I'd like to introduce you all. This is Cam King. He is going to talk to us about his amazing Hollywood career. We are so proud of him and so excited to have him here today. That's fun.
Thank you. I don't even remember that title. That's amazing.
It was amazing. I didn't read through your essay. Too busy for that, but I'm sure it was great.
No. Dude, that's just mean. Honestly.
It's not mean. It's okay.
I don't really know how to start this, to be honest, but Ben pretty much covered, or Miss Witcher pretty much covered everything there.
I think you're going to wait for the journalism class is going to ask.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
And I just want to put out, Cam admitted to us earlier that he is nervous, and he doesn't need to be. So my journalism kiddo's down in Mr. Adams' room. Jillian, do you want to introduce yourself and take it away?
Hi,
Take your hood off.
I'm part of the journalism class. And our first question for you, which ties in nicely to Mrs. Witcher's little intro about high school you, is how would you describe yourself in high school? What was the high school version of you compared to the current version of you? If you want to talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, in high school, I was a pretty good student. I learned most of what I learned in the classroom. I was more of a hands-on person as opposed to, studying much at home. I really enjoyed, like, the teachers that we had, and I liked the small classes, which were really nice. There's a lot more hands-on, teaching from the teachers themselves. I really enjoyed the Channel 3 program that we had, which I'm happy to hear is back or still continuing and adapting to all the digital stuff that you guys are doing now, which is kind of cool. But pretty much, yeah, I was a, pretty good student and studied as best I could and enjoyed. I hung out with everybody. I feel like I was friends with almost everybody. And yeah, pretty much, I don't know. I enjoyed the school that we have. I enjoyed Lin-Wood a lot. So, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Thinking back to your high school self, what was the reason for picking Emerson College?
Emerson appealed to me because it had a great, basically like a network for after college ultimately. So the school itself at Emerson has a lot of people in the industry that are working in various positions outside of, in the business once you move on. So that appealed to me. And when I visited Emerson, the TV studio that they had there was basically an industry standard studio. So they had equipment that ultimately I saw when I moved out to LA. I didn't know it at the time, but when I walked into the TV studio there at Emerson, it blew me away because it has, it had all the huge boards and screens, and it just looked really, really cool and neat. And the idea of having a network built into the college I was going to for beyond college was important to me. So I knew that meeting people I would meet in college would ultimately help me get jobs afterwards. And, and people who had already gone to school, I knew that, Emerson has like it's got a good name to it. It's kind of one of those things that when people see it on your resume or you tell someone you went to Emerson, you're probably going to run into somebody else who went to Emerson as well. And I really liked the idea of that part of it. And also it was in Boston. So it was kind of, I could get out of the small town that you guys all know very well and move to a city, which I thought was appealing. And Boston is close enough still to home, so I could come back and see that old guy standing in the corner behind you. I could see him every once in a while. It's close enough. And, it was a move to a city, but it was still in New England, which I liked. I wasn't comfortable with moving, too far away in the beginning. But it was mainly the city, the location, and the industry standard that they provided. It was a cool school.
Absolutely. You talked briefly about job opportunities. What are some of the jobs that you had before you ended up where you are right now? And is there anything different you would have done to change that kind of career journey?
There isn't anything different I would have done. I worked when I moved out here, as Ms. Witcher mentioned, I had an internship here at Jimmy Kimmel my last semester of school. And then once I moved out here, there wasn't an opening here at the show for a while because people don't really leave this show once they're here. Just because mainly it's, as it kind of works, if you're working on a TV show, for instance, that, has 20 episodes or something, you're filming that for 4 months at a time. And then you have to find something else beyond that. Whereas Jimmy Kimmel, we're here every day of the week for the entire year. So it's kind of a convenient thing. So nobody really left once they're here. So there wasn't an opening. And so for about a year and a half when I was in LA, I was working on tons of different reality shows that some of them didn't even make it on air because they were that bad. But it was fun because it was one of those situations where we were working all over the city, driving to different locations, and kind of seeing seeing the city in a way that was kind of neat, and it was fun to it was just fun to be a part of everything. It was part of the reality shows were cool because everything was there was not like the union how would you call it we were able to work on everything, I should say. So I learned a lot of skills in those first few for the first few jobs I was doing, which then ultimately when I got this job, I had a foundation from the ground up to know the different various parts of the show. So I wouldn't do that differently. The experiences I had on that, as fleeting as they were on any of those shows, were valuable. And it was a lot of fun.
Jillian, I'm gonna interrupt for 1 second. Just because I don't actually know what you do. Like, what is your job on the Jimmy Kimmel Show?
Well, I'm the production coordinator. So I have a team of production assistants, and my office is kind of the glue to every department here. So I get calls from the lighting department for things that they need. And then I get calls from the people who put the props out, or the people who deal with Jimmy's desk, or, all the different pieces of the show. A lot of it comes through my office to coordinate the different pieces, to have them come together. Kind of like a big puzzle is how I always think about it. I'm not the one putting the puzzle together. I work with those are my bosses, obviously, but I work hand in hand with them to make sure that it works smoothly. And it's very nice to have, it's nice to have that connection to every piece of the show. So a lot of the stuff that is happening comes through my office, and I have the team of PAs that I've got, that help me, the production assistants help me put it all together. So I kind of manage and prioritize the different requests as they come in, to make sure that the things move efficiently. A lot of creative problem solving is the main thing. Presented with a problem, and then have to figure out how to get it done.
So I know that kind of went into it, but could you tell us a little bit more of like the kind of thing you do like on the daily? So any specific things or?
Yeah, I mean, basically start the day checking in on all the different.
Hold on 1 second.
My production assistants, they're all in different locations throughout the building. COVID has changed everything, because we have to work to make sure people are distanced and not crossing paths and staying in zones and pods and all that stuff. So in the morning, I just check in on all them to make sure that they're all good and have the supplies they need, and they're set for the day. Depending on, sometimes we're starting to have guests in more frequently in person. So if they come in, we've got to set up their rooms and make sure that they've got everything they need to connect to our producers and their people here, the guest teams that come in. And then throughout the day, like I said, it's just a lot of calls coming through the office to ask for certain things that need to be figured out. And it's tough to give concrete examples. The biggest problem that we always have is our parking lot in the back. We're in the center of Hollywood, so parking's at a premium. So that is basically a huge slide puzzle, those things where you have to move one piece to put another piece in. And that's just a constant, game of shuffling. And then with COVID, we had to move everything outside. We had to put seating outside and a big tent for eating and drinking. We can't take the masks off inside generally, although I'm in my office with a closed door, so luckily I can. But that was the biggest thing, was to try to get all that stuff handled. And as it constantly changes, a lot of those calls come through to figure something out. If we have to, if we have to have something filming in one area where stuff has to move, then I have to figure out how to move it and where to move it to, and that kind of stuff. So it's a lot of calls that come in, requests, and just trying to just on the fly figuring stuff out.
Emma, I know you have another question, but just in terms of the typical workday, what are your hours?
Well, we tape at 4:30 our time. We've got the show airs at 8:30 our time, 11:30 East Coast. So by the time we're done filming at around 5:30 or so, the editors have already started editing everything so that it can go right up. We have to, send it to New York basically via satellite so that it can air for you guys to watch it basically. So I come in at like 9:30, anywhere between 9 and 9:30, and then we're done at 5:30 for the most part. That's with COVID. Before we would get done at around 7 or so. But that because we'd have more guests in studio and we'd have more stuff going on, we'd have to get a whole audience in too, which now we are the audience. So, the staff that are here have to sit in the audience and laugh and clap, make sure Jimmy feels funny, So it's totally different now, but that's generally the day. And that, 9 o'clock to about 5:30 now, 5:36.
Sorry, this is Tom Undersea. I watch it on YouTube. I don't have cable, but and so I was wondering I always wondered if you were one of the people who laugh and clap. And what if you don't laugh and clap at his jokes? I mean, he's typically funny, but
then you have to sit in the parking lot.
Yeah. But are you one of the people there when they talk about the crew? It really is the crew and anybody there? Yeah, that's funny.
Yeah, there's about 20. We have the audience there are about 170 seats normally, but we can only fit safely, I think, 26 or 7 as it is in the actual chairs. So we're all, 6 feet or so apart. And then on the floor itself, we've got the camera guys and our stage managers running around. But there is a shot they'll show, it's on the jib camera, which is, pulled way back over the audience. You can kind of see us in there, spread apart. And I generally sit underneath the jib, so you can sometimes see my hands clapping. If you know what you're looking for.
That's funny.
Okay, and back to my second question. What do you really love about your current job? Like, how did you know that this was the right fit for you?
Well, I loved Channel 3. I loved the program that we had at Lin-Wood. When I got into high school, the guy who was running that, it was his last year. So after he left, it was kind of just up to like us kids to kind of figure it out. We had a couple like substitute, it was like kind of like a part-time teaching job, really. Like some people would come in and like it would seem like every year there was somebody new. So while we were doing that, that's when we were just kind of doing what I'm doing now, figuring stuff out on the fly. As we knew the equipment back then. Lin-Wood we were delayed in terms of the technology, regardless, just because of it had been going on for so long. We had huge cameras with VHS tapes in them. And that's how we would film the soccer games and the basketball games and stuff. And then we'd have to actually physically take unscrew the tape and then cut it and put it back together with tape. It was, the old cut and paste, which even then was dated because there was technology at the time when I was in high school. I'm not talking like I was in the 80s here. But it was dated. Yeah. But I enjoyed that a lot. And I didn't know it at the time, but that basically led to what I enjoy doing now, which is that creative problem solving piece of everything. My older brother he's 10 years older than me. So I always saw the cameras at his soccer games and it always kind of fascinated me. And then once I started doing it at Lin-Wood, then I knew that's kind of the direction I wanted to go in TV in general. And then when I went to Emerson, I started doing, many of the different student groups and stuff like that, where you have, you have a group of students that make a TV show basically using that equipment that's at the college. And doing that was pretty much the same thing I'm doing now, just on a much smaller scale. And then when I went into the reality shows, I realized I'm not creative enough to write stuff or to, come up with the ideas, but I am creative enough to solve the problems presented in each of these things. So that's what I enjoyed in the reality shows, because that's all just on the fly. You're just figuring it out as it goes, because it's not scripted for the most part. So that, to answer your question, I figured out that I wanted to do this current job I have now as I started doing these other things, and realized that as I learned more about it, the coordinating and the producing side is where I wanted to get into.
All right. So I actually have a question for you. I want to know something crazy that happened on the Jimmy Kimmel show, as long as it won't get you in trouble.
I can't tell you all the crazy stuff, but I would say the most recent crazy thing was obviously COVID and changing basically our whole building to fit to the new protocols. It's not as fun and exciting as the celebrity stories, but I unfortunately can't tell those. But that being said, there are a lot of times where you just have interactions that are just, they're just fun and interesting. And I will say that I'm constantly grounded by New Hampshire, by our hometown, because I always think how cool it would be to have my friends see this kind of stuff too, And I constantly think back to Lincoln and Woodstock, and, just I value the fact that I'm even in this position, period. So.
And I was also wondering, what do you like about the West Coast living?
About the West Coast, well, it's like 60 degrees right now, which is technically cold to everyone out here. I can't imagine. Wonder what it is back home, but it's always sunny. It's pretty laid back here. There's a lot of. I grew up obviously in the mountains, like you guys, skiing and going in the woods and hiking and all that stuff. So LA is huge and spread out, but at least there's still mountains nearby, and I can go camping and about an hour away, which is, I like that a lot. California has a lot of terrain, everything you can imagine, from the desert to the mountains. It's just a lot of fun. It's fun.
And finally, I wanted to ask you, what do you miss about back home here?
Everything. I took it for granted growing up because it was so small, and I thought I wanted to get out and see something bigger. But every time I go home, I just love seeing all my friends that are back there, family. The town itself is pretty much just a huge family. You guys know everyone and their families, and everything. So I do miss that a lot. I miss having that connection. I have not met a single person that has gone to a smaller school than what we go to. People will tell me, I went to the smallest school in the world, and I'll say, well, how many kids were in your class? And they'll say, oh, it was like 100, which is the entire high school. That's when I was there. So they get blown away by the fact of how small our town is. And like I said, I took it for granted when I was growing up there, but I wouldn't ask it any other way now. I miss the small town vibe a lot.
Awesome. Thank you, Cam. I think that it would be really cool if we opened it up to questions from the rooms. So I don't know, Mrs. Witcher, you have seniors in there. What, anybody have anything good they want to ask Cam?
Come on, Chuck.
Or any comments you want to make? Oh, Angel has something she wants to say.
No, I said the questions I asked were the question.
She thinks that the Tank Connection did a great job with the questions that they came up with.
Just give me a sec.
Come on, Chuck, you got it.
Charlie.
I don't know what to ask. Because It just seems so, it still seems so far away, even though it's coming up soon. Like,
You mean life after high school?
Yeah.
Well, what about like, do you want to ask him about like college or picking a college
Ooh, no, I don't
or
want to talk about college.
or how stressed out he was about applying to
Oh, yeah,
college?
was that crazy? My sister got in a huge argument with my parents before she had to decide which college to go to. So, I can see that it can be stressful.
We love Chucky Laux a lot. He's coming in from left field on that one. But,
Nah, that's the
Oh, that's Chucky Laux, eh?
yeah, oh yeah.
Ah.
I don't play left field.
I know Mr. Laux still works here.
He's an old
Yeah.
man.
I want to ask Nate, and then I'm sure my sophomores will ask a question, but Nate, what was the worst job you had after high school?
Wait a minute, are you talking to Nate or are you talking to Cam?
Did I say
You
Nate?
said Nate.
I meant
You said
Cam.
Nate.
Who's
I'm
getting old?
sorry. I'm getting old. I'm 46, Cam. I'm old.
We do not say those things out loud.
What was the question?
What was the worst job you had to do to get to where you are?
Oh, that was one of the reality shows. I worked on a show called Extreme Moms. And that was a show where we traveled around. We had, I think it was like 13 or 16 families in LA. And then I drove a truck full of equipment across country to New York, and we had about 10 over there. And that one was rough. That was a lot of long days, 16-hour days or so. And then it was just one of those reality shows that have crazy parents, crazy moms.
Did you just follow moms around town and in
Kind
their
of. Pretty much, yeah. There was one.
filmed these crazy mothers?
Yeah, one was a germaphobe, for instance, and so the show took her kids fishing, and she flipped out because the kids were touching worms and everything. Another one, without going into too much detail, because it's worse than this, but I spent the morning cleaning up puke all day. And there was much worse to that one, but like those were the jobs that were, like I said, they were, in the end of the day, they were fun because now the stories are fun and I learned a lot from them. But at the time, it was not as fun as it sounds.
I know you mentioned on those before about you started into unions and stuff. So there wasn't a puke cleaning union that you had to go through.
Right.
Yeah.
So that was yeah. So basically, yeah. So the unions are all separated. So each job is very specific. So you got, like, technically I'm not allowed to change a light bulb on the stage because that's the lighting guys only. But on reality shows, it's kind of a free for all. So I was doing everything from like running cables for audio and also moving cameras and setting up lights and all that stuff, which on a show like Jimmy Kimmel and many other film sets too are the same. It's very specialized, so you can't have, you're not supposed to cross over. But yeah, the reality shows was everyone doing everything, which, like I said, was a great experience to learn it all.
Yeah. Are those jobs less prevalent now? Is it more union or less, or is it just the type of job you get and the pay scale you're going to get?
Yeah, it depends on the show, really. Many of the reality shows are still non-union, but the network shows that you'd see are all union. If they're on we're not technically on like the Disney lot or the ABC lot where they have all those sets built and everything. If you watch, I don't even really watch much TV now, but if you see a show with like The Office, if you guys know The Office, that set was on a stage somewhere that they always went to the same place. Anything like that is union, pretty much. And then a reality show where they're like, you're at somebody's personal house and you're kind of taking over, that's a lot of that is still non-union. Commercials are all union as well. And those commercials are interesting. Those are like 2 or 3 days, maybe up to a week. And people bounce around those constantly. I have a few friends that coordinate for those, and they're just always looking for the next thing. And they're, building up a few weeks worth of work at a time. And it's a grind, but it's lucrative and fun.
Cam, I appreciate you talking about the fact that you've had to go through jobs that you did not enjoy, that required a lot of hard work. We talk about this regularly in high school, that you're not going to graduate from college like in your ideal job setting, probably. That there's going to be lots of times where you just have to like make money, and you do jobs but with every job you do, you find something more that maybe you want your job to be like. Like how much Miss Witcher and I just adore being English teachers. Right, Mrs. Witcher?
Right.
Love it.
Well, he touched on that. Cam, you mentioned that. You said how they have to look ahead and look ahead. That's looking ahead for themselves, because I know just a few times I was out in LA, I asked what people did for a job, and people can't answer that because everything's a project.
Yeah.
Everything they have is a project. Well, what are you working on? Well, this project. And it is. It's like, it's not a resume thing. You have to like, is that what you're implying? Like you're constantly looking at your next gig.
Right. And even here trying to tell the day to day, because it's, every day we're putting on, if you think about on a TV show, right, you're working for 4 months and you're making 20 episodes, say. But they're doing all the filming as is. And then all that stuff goes off to, an editing house, and they're editing, and they don't see their final product for maybe 6 months down the road. Whereas with us, we have our final product is every day. You can see what you've worked towards that night. And then it kind of resets the next day. But in the meantime of all that, the day to day is completely different. There's many different challenges that are thrown my way. So it's hard to kind of go through a structured day by day thing. And that's the same for other people who are working, like you said, on projects here and there, like a commercial here, and then you're going to work on, some other show or a movie or a short film, for instance, that's a month of work. And then you go from there and you work on a commercial again, and you might find a reality show here and there, or a TV show. And some of these people who work on shows that are, if they film from March to May, and that show is on again next year, they'll know they have March to May covered, but in the meantime, they'll have to find some other stuff in between. But yeah, to answer your question, it is a lot of, it's mainly also, you have to work hard, but you also have to be likable, and you have to get to know people and network and put yourself out there. That's kind of what I did. I had to move to LA in order to get these jobs, because I can't tell you how many resumes I get of people who are in New York or on the East Coast somewhere, and they say, hey, if there's anything opening, consider me. And I can't hire somebody if they're not here, and that was the big move for me, is to go from Boston from New Hampshire to here without having anything, but I knew I had to be somewhere else to get the jobs.
I have a question about your internship. So, it seems like pretty amazing that you got an internship to go to LA and work for Jimmy Kimmel. Were there other options, or like when you were at Emerson, were all your friends that are in your major like getting cool internships like that, or were there some that did you have options and you just were like, oh, Jimmy Kimmel sounds fun?
Yeah, the Emerson has a program. The senior year, your senior year at Emerson, you go and work, or you have an internship if you want. You have to apply for it. But it's, you either pick the fall semester or the spring semester to come out to LA. And once you get approved for the internship, then you have to find the job. So a friend of mine before in the fall had worked here, and he reached out to somebody who was in Emerson. He had graduated. He was just an alumni and had been there had been working in the industry as a guy who, builds sets pretty much. And he worked here. So he reached out to him, kind of cold emailed him and said, hey, here's my resume if you want to pass it off to the coordinator. And then he passed the resume off. My friend got hired here as an intern, and then he passed my resume off the next semester.
Oh, that's how that works.
Yeah, but the program itself that's an Emerson program. So if there were people who were in my class who were, their internship was working at a different, like a movie studio, for instance, reading scripts or something because they wanted to be writers. So you I enjoyed the live TV aspect of it. So it was a great fit for me. But the program itself existed regardless, and then you apply for it, and that's another, to go back to the question about why I chose Emerson, that's also a reason why, because it places you in the industry, and at least you can meet people right before you graduate. And ultimately those people are the ones who ended up hiring me back, 2 years later.
Cam, our journalism class right now is in Mr. Adams' room, which is our current connection room. And I know he has a couple students who he's doing like an extended learning opportunity with in terms of technology and TV. And do either Alex or Madav have anything they want to ask Cam, since he's a captive audience right now?
Nothing? Seems like they don't.
Wow.
But Cam, I'll ask you a question.
Yeah.
Both about how you got to where you are and your job that you like right now. Do you see yourself growing into something else eventually?
Yeah, definitely. I've been here now for 8 years, and while I like it a lot, I'm definitely looking for the next thing still. I've figured out that I enjoy the coordinating part, and the next step up job wise would be like a production supervisor or a production manager, as far as the next title would be. And I would like to work for something that is a little bit less consistent, because the networking is so key to everything. And being in one place for 8 years, you kind of lose that. There isn't necessarily a reason to network, even though the reason to network is just to meet people in general and to build your friendship group. But I would like to get into something with the same kind of creative problem solving job to get the juices flowing, and then also have it not be as consistent. So I could also, travel from one show to the next, which I miss doing that from the reality show days, partly. But it is also comfortable here. I have consistent work that I can rely on for the whole year.
Nice. What do you think, Mrs. Kroll?
My sophomores are very quiet right now. I don't think they have any questions. Are we good?
Sleep or something.
I know. Nobody?
I don't know why my seniors don't have any questions.
Any of you guys watch Kimmel?
Why is it me?
Bree Kalayo has a question. What's your question? Do you want to stand up so that he can see you? Okay, she's sitting on the floor, so give her a second. Okay.
Hi, Bree.
What did you major in? What was your major in college?
My major was television production.
Okay.
Yeah, that was one of the programs they offered at Emerson.
Good answer. Good question.
Our journalism class is tricky because it's like connection combined with journalism, and so we joined forces so that we could produce a weekly show. But the people who signed up for it wanted to do more writing, so not all of them love being on camera. We have Jillian; she really enjoys doing that role, and we have another student, Olivia Drapo, who will step into it when needed. But some of the younger ones, other than the leprechaun there, he will jump in too when needed. But they don't love that being on camera, and so it's been interesting. And I don't know a lot about the behind the scenes. Dan knows all of that. So it's been good to kind of see that other side of, a broadcast journalism kind of course. And the kids all are taking risks. We still do a ton of public speaking here, so that hasn't gone away. But hearing Mrs. Witcher talk about the senior project, I don't know. I feel like we maybe need to bring that back.
Let's do it, fourth quarter.
What's the senior project? Dude, I'm not trying to do a big
Okay.
project.
This was like another funny thing that I found of Cam.
No.
So in this senior project, he had to write a letter and invite a panel of people to come and listen to his presentation. So I gave them like kind of like a form letter of what they had to write. And then, because Cam has a witty personality, he writes in here, I invited you to be on my panel because you're my English teacher, and we all had to invite you to be on our panels.
That's pretty good networking.
Yeah,
Yeah, is that how you've been getting your jobs, networking like that?
yeah, pretty much.
I had to.
Yeah.
There was no choice. You
Yeah,
forced my hand.
I was forced for you to be on my panel.
I would have chosen you anyways. Come on.
Wow.
Yeah, you're a few thousand miles away to say that. That's good.
Yeah.
In only 15 years.
All right, well, with that said, and that's our bell for some kids to leave. But I do appreciate that obviously you're still connected to town because your mom and dad still live here. But we really appreciate you.
Please report to the front office for dismissal. Deanna Rand, please report to the front office for dismissal.
We very much appreciate you giving up your time to speak with us, and we'll share with you our final segment when we edit it all down, for sure.
Cool.
So thank you, Cam.
Yeah, thank you guys.
With the clap.
A platform. Great, we'll be in touch. Mr.
All right,
King.
thank you.
All right, bye.